I don't even know what to say. Um, wow. First off, what a great game. I mean, what a phenomenal game. When you compare this to the games of years past, when you compare this to the game in 2021, when you compare this to the game in 2022, that game, even with as much was on the line in both of those contests, didn't feel like this. This was a phenomenal game from start to finish. And yes, it was controlled pretty much by Big Blue for the entire way. Never really felt like Ohio State was going to get that lead until right there at the very end. But I mean, just what a phenomenal game. What an incredible game. Really, really good teams here. In my opinion, when you take a look at this game, could both teams have done things a little bit better? Yes, I think there were some things Ohio State could have done better. I think there were some things that Michigan could have done better. Ultimately, Michigan ended up prevailing in this game. As I do with every video, hey, hats off to what Michigan was able to do. I knew that this was going to be a really, really tough game. This was going to be the biggest game of the college football season, and Michigan delivered. It delivered in a big way. And you know what? I know as an Ohio State fan, I'm not supposed to say this, but I am really happy for Sharon Moore, seeing the emotion and everything that this Michigan program has had to deal with, and with the not certainty, but certainly the potential of Jim Harbaugh not being that head coach on the sidelines for the Michigan Wolverines next season. I think if that is the case, and Jim Harbaugh is going to take his talents to the NFL or be done coaching or whatever, basically if Jim Harbaugh does not come back, I think the whistle needs to be given to Sharon Moore. He loves this program. He loves these guys. The emotion that he coaches with is just unlike anything I have ever seen. Sharon Moore needs to be given the whistle to this program if Jim Harbaugh is not the coach. Now, if Jim Harbaugh is the coach next year, then all of this is mute, and it doesn't matter at all. But I am really happy for Sharon Moore. Happy birthday to Blake Corum, and hopefully Zach Zinter is okay. That injury did not look good, and I'm not one to speculate, but they did say knee injury. His knee ended up getting rolled up on. Wouldn't be surprised if that came out to be an ACL and MCL, anything like that. So just really praying for Zach Zinter there, and hopefully Will Johnson is okay as well. Will Johnson, probably their best defensive back on that team. And then when you take a look at Zach Zinter, definitely is their best offensive lineman. But yeah, this one hurts more than the past couple years. I will say that this one hurts a lot more than the years prior. 2021, it just felt like it was Michigan's time. It was their time to go out. It was their time to beat them. Last year definitely hurt, but all the explosive plays there, this one hurt a lot more. There was a chance for this Buckeye team to win the game down the stretch, and it didn't happen. There was a chance for this Buckeye team to do what they did against Notre Dame. And what had plagued Kyle McCord all regular season long was the fact that he is not that great under pressure. When they get pressure on him, he panics. He throws it out. He throws it where he's not supposed to. Tried to get it to Marvin Harrison Jr., and it fell short. An interception by Rod Moore, sealing the game and sealing the fate for the sealing the fate for the Michigan Wolverines and the Ohio State Buckeyes. 24-30 is your final score. I cannot emphasize this enough, but credit to Michigan and all the fans. I know as an Ohio State fan, I'm not really supposed to say some of the things that I'm saying here, but I do have a lot of respect for this program, a ton of respect for their head coach, Sharon Moore, J.J. McCarthy, Blake Corum, Rod Moore, everyone on that team. A lot of very, very good players. And really, in my humble opinion, even though Ohio State had the chance to go down the field late and win the game, it really felt like this was Michigan's from start to finish. This was Michigan's game. They controlled the tempo for the most part. There were some moments where you had some Ohio State players really get in there and steal some momentum. There were some moments where Ohio State really took the crowd out of the game, and there were definitely some officiating calls I did not agree with, and I'll get to that here in a minute. But just from top to bottom, what a game. This one is going to hurt, and it's going to hurt for quite a bit here. Michigan moves on to play Iowa in the Big Ten championship game, and all I got to say is good luck to Michigan the rest of the way. Ohio State likely will now get a bid to go to the Orange Bowl unless there's just some absolute mayhem that happens in the college football playoff world. Louisville ended up losing today. Who knows if Florida State is going to drop that game to Florida. Washington still has to play today. Maybe there's some upset chaos with Georgia, but again, all that pretty fairly unlikely. So for all intents and purposes, I'll sit here and say Ohio State is probably out of the college football playoff race. Now, they have the resume to be able to get back in, but again, there would need to be a lot of chaos that I just frankly do not expect to have happen. So I'll say Ohio State probably going to get into the Orange Bowl against either Louisville or Florida State, depending on what happens with Florida State here again, as Louisville ended up losing that game. But, I haven't even introduce myself yet. Hey, what's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Do bleed scarlet and gray, but I talk a lot more than just Ohio State football on this channel. If you want to continue to support what I do here on the channel, make sure to like, comment, share, watching the videos, hit the subscribe button, do anything you can to help support the channel. It does mean a lot to me, but let's go ahead and dive back into this one and let's talk about the actual game. Starting out, you could definitely tell that Michigan came out with a fire, with a passion, with an energy. Both teams did, but it was very good defense for the first part of this game, and then the first big play happened. On the first play of a drive about midway through the first quarter, Kyle McCord makes just a very, very bad decision, tries to thread it into Marvin Harrison Jr. Will Johnson steps the route, returns it to the Buckeye 7, and Michigan was able to punch it in there. Ohio State would drive down and get a field goal on the very next drive, and then controversy. So Michigan strung together a 14-play, 75-yard drive. Again, there were not a lot of big plays. Yes, there were the big chunky yardage plays, but there were not a lot of big plays here in this game. In fact, I don't really think there were any super huge big plays that Michigan got on this Buckeye defense, but the chunk yardage plays really started to add up. There were a lot of them here on this drive, and from 3rd and 10 at the Buckeye 22-yard line, J.J. McCarthy threads a needle. I mean, a very, very good throw in to Roman Wilson, but Roman Wilson ends up getting it into the end zone, but Denzel Burke comes away with the football, ended up grabbing at the arm, and you guys know where my bias lies, right? You guys see the blanket behind me, you see the jersey, you see everything, but everybody that was calling the game, Gus Johnson, Joel Klatt, even Dean Blandino spoke and said, look, I do not think he has firm control of that ball at all, and that one ended up getting called a touchdown. Now, that touchdown is significant because if that touchdown were not to have happened, 24-23 is your final score here of this game, and who knows? Again, who knows what would have happened if that touchdown did not count, but it did. You have to play through it. I just will sit here and say I disagreed with the call, but that's the way that football works, right? Ref ball will always prevail. Always. I just don't think he had control of that ball at all. And I know I'm not crazy sitting here saying it because the announcers, who are very intelligent, I love Gus Johnson, I love Joel Klatt, especially as an analyst, both of them were saying that should be an interception because Denzel Burke was able to rip it away from him and come up with the football, should be going the other way there for the Buckeyes, but didn't end up proving to be that way. The officials determined that the call stands, which means there was not enough evidence to overturn that call, which I get. Again, very, very hard call. Again, we ask officials to do a lot, right? And I know that there are going to be Ohio State fans up there that are going to be upset about that call, but it is what it is. You have to move forward and you have to go through the football game. Now, Ryan Day did give the officials an earful during pretty much, from what I understand, the entirety of that TV timeout when Michigan went up 14-3 and said, like, hey, he clearly doesn't have control of the ball. What are you looking at? I thought it was going to get overturned, but I completely understand the officials' decision to go forth and say, look, we just think that there's not enough evidence to overturn that call. We're going to keep it a Michigan touchdown as it was called on the field. So then you play forward. Ohio State able to string together 7 plays, 73 yards down the field, including a big pass play to Cade Stover, which ended up drawing it within 10. Drawing it within 4, 14-10. Michigan was forced to punt on their next possession. Ohio State drove down the field, but the time and the clock were not on their side. Ryan Day elects to kick a field goal, which I know there are going to be a lot of Buckeye fans out there that say, why did you not go for it there on 4th down? You are playing too conservative. This is the game. You have to be aggressive there. This is going to be the longest field goal that Jaden Fielding has ever kicked in his life. Ryan Day, what are you doing? And I kind of agree with some of the sentiment there on that. I was sitting there thinking, okay, come on, guys, let's go. Let's go for it. Let's try to get a little bit closer, try to get 6 points here. And that's just not what ended up happening at all. You did have one timeout because Michigan forced Ohio State to use 2 in that the first quarter, and ultimately the field goal was missed. Now, did it matter on the scoreboard? Again, we will never really know how the game would have played out if it was 13-14 entering halftime, but you take a look at that final score. Did that field goal matter? Not really at all, especially considering where Ohio State got to on their last drive. They got down to the 39-yard line. Not enough for Jaden Fielding to go out and try a field goal before Kyle McCord threw that pick. Again, we'll talk more about that here in a second. First drive of the second half, Michigan strung together some good chunk yardage plays, but the Buckeyes defense stayed strong, and they forced a 50-yard field goal from James Turner, which ended up being good. Buckeyes come right back down the field, and they score a touchdown, which leveled it at 17, and this is where sort of all of the air got taken out of the stadium. The Buckeyes finally felt like they had the momentum in this game, and all they were going to need to do was make a big defensive stand, but it didn't happen. Chunk yard play after chunk yard play, some really good things that Michigan was running there. Ended up getting a pass complete to A.J. Barner after Colston Loveland, the usual starting tight end, had to go out dealing with some blood. Ended up being a nosebleed that he was dealing with. And then this is when Zach Zinter went down. The air again got taken out of the building, but 110,000 strong were chanting, "Let's go, Zach. Let's go, Zach." And that put the air right back in the building. Yeah, it gave this Michigan team so much emotional momentum to drive forward. And on the very next play, Blake Corum ends up getting into the end zone. And by this point, I was getting really nervous. I was like, uh-oh, this is not good. Because, again, when it finally felt like the Buckeyes had the momentum, and when it finally felt like this team was going to be able to steal some of that momentum away from this team, Michigan ended up just stealing it right back. That's what Michigan has done really all season long. If, again, on the very, very slight off chance they found themselves in an uncomfortable position, they've just been able to get that momentum right back. Ohio State forced a punt on their very next drive. Some not real great throws there by Kyle McCord, but the Buckeye defense holds strong, holds Michigan to a field goal with just under 12 minutes left. Buckeyes hit a lot of quick hitting plays, couple really good catches. Julian Fleming down there, and then Marvin Harrison ends up getting in for a 14-yard touchdown. Very next drive, Michigan runs 7 minutes off the clock. There was 8:05 left. Ended up being a minute and 5 seconds, a minute left after this one. And the Buckeye defense, after giving up a lot of chunk yardage plays after Michigan was slowly able to drive the ball down the field, the Buckeyes did what they needed to do. They were able to hold Michigan to a field goal, and the 37-yarder was good. Okay, here's where I'm starting to get a whole lot of flashbacks to some previous games. I was getting flashbacks to Notre Dame earlier this year, where Kyle McCord was able to put together that drive to go down the field and win them the game. But I also got flashbacks to another game 4 or 5 years ago there in the college football playoff in 2019. Kyle McCord, first pass incomplete, ended up being dropped by Cade Stover, which I was okay with, because if he would have caught that pass, the clock would have continued to run as it only would have been a 2, maybe 3-yard gain. And then Marvin Harrison Jr. He made some incredible catches in this game. I thought maybe they should have thrown the ball to him a little bit more, given him a little bit more of a chance. But when it mattered, they got it to him. They're out to the 41-yard line. Next play, Julian Fleming catches the ball 1-2 steps. Drops the ball. It gets punched out, and Emeka Egbuka is there to recover it. Now, with the way that the officials had called this game all game long, I did not expect this one to get overturned. And I know Michigan fans out there are going to disagree with me, as, again, I expect them to, but you cannot overturn that play. You just can't do it. He had taken 2 steps. He had control of the ball. And if you're not going to overturn that touchdown earlier in the game, that should have been a Denzel Burke pick, because there was no way that Roman Wilson had control of that ball. You could not overturn that play, which is exactly what happened. But here we go, right? I was getting flashbacks to that. If you remember, there was the play where back in the playoff semifinal in the 2019, where I can't remember who the wide receiver for Clemson was, but caught the ball, took 3, if not 4 steps, lost the football while trying to turn upfield, did make that football move, looked like he was trying to advance the ball. The Buckeyes picked it up, ran it back, but they called it back. They called it an incomplete pass. I was very fearful that was what was going to happen here, but this time it leads to the Buckeyes' benefit. But then the big mistake happens, right? The big mistake happens, and that is the fact that Kyle McCord finally, when Michigan was able to get pressure back to Kyle McCord, they had gotten pressure to him before here in this game, but when they finally were able to get pressure to him on this drive, Kyle McCord had to throw a weird kind of 3/4 arm, sidearm pass that ended up falling short. Rod Moore was able to get under it, and that sealed the game. That sealed the game. It seals the regular season. No Big Ten championship for the 3rd straight year for this Buckeye team. Instead, they will see their counterparts up north in the Michigan Wolverines go play for a Big Ten title. Got some things here to talk about. First off, Kyle McCord struggled. He really struggled early on. Kyle McCord, I believe, was shaking before the game and was shaky to start the game. He just was not great. His feet were not set. He was not going through progressions, which I will talk more about here later. But Kyle McCord was just not great in the early going. He really started to settle in. He really started to find his rhythm. This is an Ohio State offense that, look, throughout most of this game, really proved that they can pound the rock. Travion Henderson ran really well. Chip Trainum came in and had a couple really good runs there as well for this team. They even ran Xavier Johnson on a 3rd down and 8, in which I was like, oh, what is this play call? And it ended up working out for him. Again, I'm not one to sit here and question play calling. That's why I'm here talking about the game and not on a sideline coaching a football team, because I am not going to question the play calling of someone that clearly knows what they're doing way more than I do. So again, not going to sit here and question play calling. That one happened to work out for him. So, hey, it was really all good. But Kyle McCord, just under pressure, he needs to work on things, especially if he is going to be that starting quarterback for next season, which at this point, I would expect him to be so. Again, I don't really expect Devin Brown to go out and transfer. Ohio State, I definitely don't expect to pick up someone from the portal unless it is going to be a more experienced option that can sit in there with Kyle McCord and kind of tell him, like, hey, dude, here's how you should be going through things. Here's how you should set your feet. Here's how you should go about things. But Kyle McCord, look, and I know there is still the bowl game left, but Kyle McCord needs to get better at a couple of really crucial things. Number one is under pressure. He needs to be a lot smarter with the football. I don't know how many intentional grounding calls Kyle McCord got called for in this game. Luckily, none here today, earlier this afternoon, but Kyle McCord, man, look, I think he showed it in Notre Dame. He showed it in flashes here at Michigan, and he showed it against Michigan State, Minnesota. Really, Kyle McCord has shown flashes of being a really good quarterback all season long. but he has not been consistent in doing so. He had a lot of very good moments, a lot of very good throws that he let his wide receivers go and make plays. There were a lot of throws here that I took a look back at and said, okay, Kyle, you do you, buddy. There were a lot of very good throws in this game, but there were some not real good throws that ended up doing a lot to turn this game. The first one was the first big play that let Michigan get on the board first, right? The Will Johnson pick, and then this pick here late, just no real reason to even try to sling that one into Marvin Harrison Jr. There was no shot you were going to get enough power on that football. Spike it short, live to see another down, probably too late for Kyle McCord to get outside of the pocket and throw it away. Chuck it to the ground. You're not going to get called for intentional grounding. He was trying to get it to a receiver. There was a receiver in the area, but Kyle McCord has got to do a better job at being able to handle pressure. And look, this offensive line grew a lot this season, and there were a lot of very good moments here in this game against Michigan. There were a lot of very good moments, and for the most part, I was very impressed with what the offensive line was able to do here in this game. But when Michigan got pressure through, and when Michigan was able to get back to Kyle McCord to harass him, to make him panic, Kyle McCord did that. He panicked, and he threw the ball. There were a lot of questionable throws early, and then there was that one questionable one really late. And look, Kyle McCord, I think, has a long way to grow. I think he's going to grow really, really well if he is going to end up being that starter, which at this point, I would expect him to be that starter entering next season. But look, just really, really good stuff I've seen from Kyle McCord this year. Yes, there is some things that I think he can and will work on this offseason, but for the most part, look, Kyle McCord, all he had to do this year was be a game manager. That's what he was. Did he make some mistakes this year? Sure, but any first-year starter is going to go out there and make mistakes. I thought for the most part, Kyle McCord had played a really, really good season, and I know the stat line is not going to be as impressive as what Justin Fields did, as what CJ Stroud did. And those of you in Buckeye Nation that expected that to happen were very far gone before the season even started. I did not expect Kyle McCord to throw for 4,000 yards and 40 touchdowns while only throwing 3 picks. I expected him to maybe have 2,500 yards with 20 touchdowns, maybe a couple picks here and there, but learn and grow. And that's exactly what Kyle McCord did this season. He was a game manager and almost was able to do it, almost was able to pull off a miraculous late last-minute drive in this game here. Again, the interception just fell short. But the one thing that I cannot get over with Kyle McCord is, yes, he has to do better under pressure, but that is going to come with experience. The more football that Kyle McCord sees, the more he is going to grow, and the more he is going to understand how to handle pressure. That is going to grow. This is something that Kyle McCord has to learn, though. Again, you can't really teach it. Being under pressure, being able to make that last-second decision, that's something the quarterback has to figure out on their own. But going through progressions and letting the play develop, there were some moments where Kyle McCord was able to do it here in this game. But for the most part, and really the real reason why Will Johnson was able to jump that route, and while there were a couple of times where Michigan defenders were able to knock the pass away, almost come up with picks, was the fact that Kyle McCord stares down his first read. He looks at his first read, he knows who he wants to throw to, and he doesn't really give anyone else a look. There are so many instances that not only myself, but ask any Ohio State fan out there, they can look at any single game, any single play, any single game, and you can find at least 1 or 2 plays where Kyle McCord should have let the play develop a little bit more or should have hit a different receiver on the route. A, it would have gone for a bigger gain. B, even if it looked like it was going to go for a shorter gain, would have turned it into a much better result given all the open space around them. Kyle McCord has to learn to read the field a little bit better. Being able to develop that ability to see the field, to read it, be able to go through your progressions and be able to hit the best fit here. And again, it might not be your first target. It might not be who you want to throw to. It may be the check down route. It might be the guy coming across on the slant when you wanted to hit the seam, right? There are so many things that Kyle McCord can work on in being able to move through his progressions, and I think that they're going to work on that coming into the bowl game. If Ohio State, again, the very slight chance if they happen to get into the college football playoff, which with all the good teams this year, I just do not see happening whatsoever. But Kyle McCord, I believe, will be that starter next season, and he has a lot of room to grow, but I think he will grow. I think he showed a lot of good flashes, and again, not just anyone is going to put together a drive on the road late in a game against a top 10 team and give your team a shot to win. He almost was able to do that here against Michigan, and he did it earlier this year against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. That gives me a lot of confidence in Kyle McCord moving forward. Travion Henderson probably going to go off to the NFL draft. What an absolute workhorse. The difference that he made in this game was very, very apparent, especially on that drive where Ohio State ran, 7-8 straight run plays there towards the end and just continued to pound it home. He is going to be dearly missed. Maybe Mayan Williams comes back again. We'll see. But Chip Trayanum ended up running really well for us this season as well. Xavier Johnson, an absolute leader on this team. Really, really like what he's done for us so far this season. Again, we'll see if that continues into the bowl game if he happens to play. Julian Fleming, the guy is very overlooked. Again, he's in Marvin Harrison Jr. He's in Emeka Egbuka's shadow, but he is really, really good. Made a lot of phenomenal catches here today. Cade Stover, that tight end. I love Cade. Came into here playing linebacker, ended up wanting to work on his agility because Ryan Day looked at him and said, hey, you could be an NFL-level tight end, and he is. He's an NFL-level tight end, and if this happens to be the last game or the last season he plays in Columbus, wish him nothing but the best. Emeka Egbuka is a phenomenal talent. He'll be picked up in the first round of the NFL draft. Can't wait to see him as yet another Ohio State wide receiver that plays at the next level. And then Marvin Harrison Jr. On both sides, he was the best player on the field, and you can make no argument about that one bit. Just on sheer raw talent, on potential, Marvin Harrison Jr. was the best player on the field, and there were moments where he played like it, and there were also moments where they tried to get him the ball, ended up not working out that much, but 5 catches, 118 yards, 1 touchdown. This dude is electric. He is a freaking cheat code, and likely going to be number 1 or number 2 in the NFL draft coming up. Now, it would be an absolute shooting star, like asteroid hitting Earth. Well, that's not really a miracle. That's more of a disaster, but it'd be a shooting star winning the lottery type sort of miracle if Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to come back and play. I do not expect him to. I think he should go on to the NFL, and if that happens to be the last game he played in a Buckeye uniform, hats off, sir, on an incredible career. I wish you nothing but the best here moving forward. Defensively, a lot of great things happened on defense here. Now, could they have slowed down the run a little bit better in this game? Yes, and could they have been a little bit more aggressive there towards the end? What had cost Ohio State in games past in 2021 and 2022 was the fact that they were too aggressive, and that's why Michigan was able to rip off big plays. Ohio State came into this game thinking, hey, we cannot be too aggressive here because Michigan's going to keep ripping off big plays. The fact that they weren't aggressive enough there towards the end ended up proving to be why Michigan was able to string together all of those chunk yardage plays. I do like the safety up top. I think you need to keep that, but I also think Jim Knowles now, again, this is his 3rd year. Too aggressive year 1, maybe a little too conservative year 2. I think Jim Knowles entering year 3 is going to end up finding that happy medium. He has now found the scheme that is going to work, and now it's time to start dialing up different blitz packages. Now it's time to start bringing safeties and corners, and time to start mixing up different looks and getting a lot of different personnel groupings. That is what Jim Knowles will work on in year 3, but you've already seen the dramatic improvement that this Buckeye defense has made in only 2 years under his control. Jim Knowles is going to continue to be this defensive coordinator here moving forward unless he decides to take a head coaching job, which I just don't see. I just don't see it happening. So very excited to see where this Buckeye defense grows. I was very impressed with the way that it was able to grow this year. Very excited to see what it does here moving forward. A lot of very talented players on this defense that will be missed to the NFL. This is a very experienced defense. but a lot of very talented guys awaiting in the wings there as well. Steel Chambers, Sonny Styles is going to be absolutely amazing. Tommy Eichenberg, Jack Sawyer, Josh Proctor, Denzel Burke, Tyleek Williams, Michael Hall. I mean, there were so many just great players. Davison Igbenoson's only a sophomore. He's a very aggressive corner. He's only going to continue to grow. I just can't say enough about the growth that Ohio State has had defensively, the growth they've had on the offensive line, and this was only Kyle McCord's first year. I expect him to get better if he is the starter moving forward, even though there are going to be some different pieces around him that are new. Brandon Inniss will enter the wide receiver room next year. A lot of other very talented weapons. Jeremiah Smith is a recruit that's going to be coming in. Carnell Tate, next man up. We're going to get to see a lot more of Dallin Hayden next year. This is, again, the upside for Ohio State moving forward is still very, very high. But I want to talk about Michigan for a second. What a job that this team has done all season long through all of the emotions that they have battled through Jim Harbaugh being suspended not once, but twice, through all the sign-stealing things, through everyone slandering this university, and then for Sharon Moore just to come out and beat Penn State, win a hard-fought game against Maryland, and then win the game in a very, very impressive fashion. You're able to pick the ball off at the end to seal the game. What a job that Sharon Moore has done here. Hey, again, if Jim Harbaugh happens to not be the head coach for Michigan here, I do believe that Sharon Moore should and probably will end up getting that whistle. And even again, if Sharon Moore is going to take a head coaching job elsewhere, if he's with Michigan still as an offensive coordinator, I wish nothing but the best for him moving forward. I love his tenacity. I love his emotion. I love his passion. I love everything that Sharon Moore brings to this program. And again, hats off for what Michigan was able to do here. Not the explosive plays that they've seen, but chunk yardage plays really did help them. Colston Loveland, Ohio State was able to pretty much at any point, they were able to stop the run. They were able to contain the passes here for the most part. They couldn't contain the tight ends. Colston Loveland, A.J. Barner pretty much did whatever they wanted here, especially the likes of number 18 and Colston Loveland. That was a matchup nightmare for this Buckeye defense. That's something else Jim Knowles will work on entering next year. But hats off to Michigan and their game plan and what they wanted to do. Probably didn't go the way that they fully scripted, but you know what? This is a phenomenal Michigan team. They were my preseason pick to win the national championship for a reason. There is so much talent on this team. J.J. McCarthy is really, really good. Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards are really, really good, and there is a lot of talent. Also, I mean, Colston Loveland, very good tight end. This is a very underrated wide receiver room. This is a defense with Junior Colson, Rod Moore, Chris Jenkins, Wallace, Derek Moore, Michael Barrett, Mikey Sainristil, Ernest Hausman. I could go on and on. There are so many phenomenal weapons. Josiah Stewart, Mason Graham, German Green, just a ton of phenomenal talent here. And again, hats off to Michigan. Hats off to Sharon Moore. And yeah, the pain of this one has already set in. But you know what? When you lose a game like this, you do the mature thing. You take your loss, you put it in the back of your pocket, and you move forward and you congratulate what your opponent was able to do. The hatred in this rivalry is something that will never be seen throughout any sport, anywhere, ever. The hatred and the bitterness that this rivalry possesses is something that just amazes me every single year. The passion, the energy, the fire. And with 12-team playoff coming, and with the Big Ten title game with the Big Ten conference no longer having divisions, it's a true 1 versus 2. We could see these two teams match up in a Big Ten title game. We could now see them match up more than likely in a college football playoff, but we will always get that game Thanksgiving weekend. Now, the stakes may never be as high as they were here, right? The stakes may never again be as high as they were here, but I can guarantee you one thing, and that is the bitterness and the hatred and the passion and the energy and the fire that this rivalry possesses will stand the test of time. It will never end. It will never burn out, no matter how high the stake, no matter how high or low the stakes are. There is a lot that rides on this game every single year, more than just making a Big Ten championship game or going to play for a national title game. It's about beating the other colors that is on the other sideline, and successfully Michigan's been able to do that for the past 3 seasons. And look, Ohio State had their moments, and Ohio State, could they have won this game if a couple things went differently? Yes, probably, but hats off to what Michigan was able to do. Very, very, again, as a Buckeye fan, I know a lot of Buckeye fans will say, you can't say that, but I am. I'm really happy for what Sharon Moore has been able to do. The loss does hurt, but I live by many mottos. One of them is which you get 24 hours. You get 24 hours to feel sorry for yourself, to be upset, to look back on it, and then you put it in your back pocket. You put it in the memory bank for later, and you move forward. Now, obviously, the Buckeye team is going to try to use, hey, they've beat you 3 straight times. Look at all of the things that are being said about your coach, about the players, about Kyle McCord, just so many things. Moving forward, the Buckeye team is going to use that as fuel. They absolutely are, as they have been, I'm sure, for the past 3 seasons. And I'm going to close out this video by addressing the people that want Ryan Day fired. All I have to say, 56-7. Jim Harbaugh was 0-4 against Ohio State to start out his Michigan career. 0-4. 0-4. Ryan Day has a win over Michigan in 2019. He has a win. He is now 1-3 against Michigan, but you know what? He's never lost to any other Big Ten opponent. Every single loss he has had has been to a team that was at the time ranked inside of the top 15. And again, 3 of those have come in college football playoff scenario games, right? They have come on the biggest stage and the brightest lights against the toughest of competition, and the same was true here. Ryan Day, yes, has a tendency, and again, I am not sitting here and questioning play calling, not what I'm doing, but he has a tendency to lay things a little bit more conservatively than I feel most coaches would play it out in that scenario. In fact, going forward on 4th down instead of kicking that field goal, I have thought for years that I think Ryan Day is a very passionate, fiery guy. You saw that in this post-game presser against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, but this is a coach that you cannot let go. You just can't. And I know that there's all this message board material out there that's saying he's going to go to Texas A&M and he's going to do this and Ohio State's going to do that and whatever, right? I think Ryan Day is a very, very smart mind. I think he's a very good offensive mind. Now, do I think that he should be calling offensive plays? I do think he needs to have a say because there are some really good play calls that he ends up coming up with. Again, the risky move to run Xavier Johnson there on 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 down in Michigan territory was a risky play call. He took that risk and it paid off. Now, again, you can look at so many other instances where if you are someone that does so, you can question play calling and you can question why didn't they go for that? Oh, Ryan Day was being way too soft here. Why are you doing that? I'm not going to deal with it. Those of you that can flood, you know what? You can flood my message boards. You can flood my comment section with the fact that Ryan Day needs to go because he can't beat that team up north. The same conversation was being had about Jim Harbaugh. The same conversation that is surrounding Ryan Day surrounded Jim Harbaugh. And you know what? Even though Harbaugh was not on the sidelines here, this team played for him. And Jim Harbaugh helped this team prepare for that game. Now, give all credit to Sharon Moore. I thought he did a phenomenal job. And I know that the critics and the spotlights are going to be shining bright on Ryan Day. They are, and it's something that he is just going to have to deal with because it is not going to go away. But I am not one that's going to sit here and want to fire Ryan Day. I have been a proponent of keeping him for a long time, and I am not changing my stance just because he can't be a team that, again, I preseason picked to win the national championship here, people. And I know Michigan fans are going to say, yeah, keep Ryan Day because we'll just keep beating him and beating him. That's what Ohio State said about Jim Harbaugh, too, and look at what happened. Jim Harbaugh turned the ship around. He got some really, really good players, started to figure things out, and then Michigan was finally able to win. Ohio State will get another win in this series. Michigan is not going to I would be very hard-pressed to find Michigan ripping off 8 straight against this Buckeye team in this series, something that Ohio State was able to do earlier on in this series. I would be very hard-pressed to find if Michigan was able to rip off a streak like that. Now, can it happen? I mean, this is the greatest rivalry in college football. Anything can happen, but look, this is just a very fiery rivalry. It has been a very fun season. It's been a very exciting season. Again, I give a lot of credit to what Michigan was able to do. And yeah, this loss does hurt. It hurts quite a bit. It hurts a lot. But to all my Buckeye fans out there, still got one more game, still got the bowl game to look forward to. See a lot of young talent emerge, as I'm sure guys like Travion and Marv and Emeka and others may very well end up sitting out of that game in order to prepare themselves for the NFL draft. Again, could be wrong on that, but remains to be seen. Michigan is moving forward into the Big Ten championship game. They'll probably move into the college football playoff. If you are an Ohio State fan sitting at home, the only thing that you can do is root for chaos. That is the only thing that you can do. Root for chaos, 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 and maybe Ohio State will end up getting a bid in there. But again, I'm not expecting it to happen. I'm going to sit and enjoy the rest of my college football Saturday at least as much as I can. Final score, again, from Ann Arbor, 30-24. I do not think Ryan Day is the problem with this team. And I really don't think anything is a problem with this team. The defense took a huge step. Kyle McCord will continue to grow. There were a lot of great offensive weapons, and I don't think you can look at Ryan Day and say he's the problem just because he can't beat one team. Whoop-de-doo. That's what Jim Harbaugh did all season long, and I know that, look, you're like, but you have to beat Michigan. It's really the only game that matters. Now I agree with that to the sentiment that, look, this is the biggest game of the year, no matter if both teams are 0-11 or 11-0, and everything is on the line. Everything is on the line, period. You get bragging rights for 365 days, and Michigan will continue to gain their bragging rights here, and just... I really don't think I have anything to say. How long is this video? Wow, 41 minutes. If you guys sat through this entire video, hats off to you. Thank you for supporting the channel. This one is going to hurt, but again, very happy for Sharon Moore, and I give a lot of credit to what Michigan was able to do. The Buckeyes end up falling just short, probably more likely than not end up moving on there to the Orange Bowl, and then really moving forward, there's no reason why Ohio State should not be in the 12-team playoff every single year with the way this team recruits, with the history of this team. This will probably be the last year for a good long while, at least the way things project outwards, that Ohio State will be missing the college football playoff. Again, chaos can happen, but that's something that just hasn't happened in the college football season this year. So, man, now I'm over 42 minutes. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and sign off this video before I start rambling on more. I know I've rambled enough here in this video. Very emotional win for Michigan, very emotional loss for the Buckeyes, and people are going to say what they want on message boards across America, on Twitter, on Facebook, on whatever social media platform you may use, but can't do nothing about it. 30-24 is the way that things finish from Ann Arbor, and all the Buckeyes can do is wait 365 days when they get this game back in the Horseshoe. Another year with Kyle McCord under center. Again, if he is that guy, should be a phenomenal game next year like it is every single year. Excited to see what Ohio State and Michigan have in store here moving forward. And I'm going to go ahead and sign off. So if you watch through this entire video, seriously, I appreciate it so much. If you just watched bits and pieces, or even if you came on here to leave a crude comment in the comment section below, hey, you're helping to support the channel. So whatever you guys do does mean a lot to me. I'll take the heat for it. I know people can be pretty ruthless about this rivalry. Again, that's what you got to do. You got to take your loss, move it into the back pocket, and move forward. But this one is going to hurt, and it is going to sting. Okay, I'm rambling. I'll sign off. Hey, remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll be moving through with top 25. I'll be moving through with top 25 takeaways, everything like that here coming up on Monday. So appreciate all of your guys' time, and I will see you again in the next video. Goodbye.